So after the Bulls missed out on the Russell Westbrook buyout sweepstakes, which I am 100% okay with, the Bulls pivoted to signing another player who was on the buyout market in Chicago's own Patrick Beverley. And this, I'm kind of just like, whatever. I mean, I'll be honest, when the reports were first coming out about the Bulls being interested in signing Westbrook, I was beside myself with how little sense this made for the Bulls and couldn't figure out why so many Bulls fans wanted this guy given the makeup of the current roster that we have in Chicago. But it slowly got to the point with the Bulls stacking up losses after the deadline where I started to get on the why not train when it came to actually adding Westbrook. So with Patrick Beverley, I feel like at this point I'm kind of in the same mindset of why not? I don't think Beverley really moves the needle at all for the Bulls, but unlike virtually every other player on this roster, Pat Bev is a fighter. He comes ready to play, plays hard, has that dog mentality that we've been wanting from these guys all season, and the dude is going to be a vocal leader in the locker room. He's the type of player that is going to call you out if you're not giving maximum effort on the floor. That's what the Bulls have needed. And he's from Chicago. Obviously, it sits a little different when you bring in a player who grew up in the city, is going to take his passion for the game to another level when he's playing in front of his hometown, but let's not kid ourselves. Pat Bev alone, especially at this stage in his career, is not suddenly turning things around for the Bulls, all right? Like, there is a reason why he's been thrown around from team to team for the past few seasons. Had a solid role on the Timberwolves last season, helping them make it to the playoffs, gets traded in the Rudy Gobert deal, gets bought out by the Jazz, and then the Lakers sign him as a free agent thinking he was this type of player that they needed as a veteran guard, vocal leader after they missed the playoffs last season. And not saying this was all Pat Bev's fault, but he really just wasn't impactful in any way, shape, or form for that team. Granted, probably wasn't used the best on that team, but he wasn't a good fit, and they moved him at the deadline to the Magic. 34 years old, pretty inefficient on offense. This is actually his worst season of his career on offense with a negative 3.3 box plus minus, offensive box plus minus, I should say. A player efficiency rating of 8, which is pretty terrible, only shooting 40% from the field and 35% from 3. So again, doesn't fit the Bulls' need for shooters on this roster with their 90s style ball with limited three-point shooting. So yeah, I know I'm sounding like a big-time negative Nancy over here, but we also need to be realistic with ourselves that this signing really isn't going to be doing much for the Bulls. Yes, a voice that will knock some sense and some urgency into these guys. Yes, a good storyline because Beverley being linked to Chicago has been a thing for a few seasons now, dating all the way back to when he was a free agent before signing with the Clippers. But this is another one of those buyout signings or signings in general where the Bulls sign a player, a quality player, way past their primes. It is low risk though, as I would assume it's a vet minimum deal and only for the rest of the season, so it's not like they would be committing to him long term. The other thing that I don't like about the signing is that it likely means Beverley is going to be taking minutes away from guys like Ayo, Dalen Terry, and even Coby White. Some of the few young guys that you have on this team who really should be prioritized for development in a lost season for the Bulls. And at the end of the day, I guess it's still a little surprising to me that this front office is still pushing the win now agenda. I mean, I don't know why I say surprising. It really shouldn't be at all since the front office has been doubling down on this all season, even when it's become abundantly clear that this team straight up does not work, nor can they succeed in actually making any kind of noise in the playoffs. Like, if you guys caught my last video where I was talking about whether the Bulls should still try and push to make the playoffs versus just calling it a season, resting your better players, getting the younger guys some run and experience, and increasing that likelihood of landing a top 4 pick, as the Bulls stand right now, they actually have better odds of landing a top 4 pick at 32% compared to a 15% chance of actually making the playoffs. Again, as I said in that video, I hate seeing my team lose. I hate the thought of tanking, especially when we've been seeing this team lose season after season, but the odds just aren't in their favor right now. And adding a guy like Pat Bev might have them marginally improve, like very marginally, but a small enough amount of improvement that worsens their chances of getting a top 4 pick. But likely, again, still missing the playoffs, which would increase their chances of sending that pick to Orlando. So yeah, I will say though, this signing does add some intrigue for the remainder of the season, something somewhat to be excited about given he's a Chicago native. I guess at the end of the day, no, I'm not a huge fan of the signing, but I do like it better than some of the other options that were talked about, say in John Wall. At least Patrick Beverley gives you some energy and hustle on the team, especially on defense. John Wall would literally feel no need whatsoever on this roster. I am curious to see who the Bulls are going to waive though to open up that roster spot for Beverley. I know a lot of people have been saying it's going to be Goran Dragic, but I don't see how it can't be Tony Bradley. I mean, yes, that's an insanely heavy backcourt if you don't waive someone like Dragic, But yeah, Bradley hasn't even been playing. At least Dragic has been getting some run. But either way, we'll see. Very possible by the time you're watching this, that's already been announced. Also, given it's the All-Star break, I'm going to do a hot takes video on Wednesday, as I try to do those from time to time still. Leave your hot takes in the comments, and I'll put out a video with my reaction to them on Wednesday. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.